We are putting a spotlight on the Commission on Racial and Structural Equity in Rochester this morning with the co-chair, former Mayor Bill Johnson, and Commissioner Willie Lightfoot. Thank you both for joining me. Bill, I want to start with you. Tell us about the inaugural report for the Commission, the findings and the core recommendations.
Well, thank you, Mark, for this opportunity. This is a very dynamic and a comprehensive review of structural racism. And a lot of people will have to grasp the meaning of that concept. We're not talking about individual racism, what people do to each other. We're talking about things that are systemic and how they tend to disproportionately affect one particular group of individuals, people of color, African Americans, Latinos, and others. And so these things have been taken for granted for so long that people just sort of believe that it is the way things ought to be. And yet it is not. So we spent 6 months looking at a host of systems, found that there were connections between the systems. So you were not just looking at policing or other aspects of the criminal justice system, but education, job creation, business development, health, mental health, and all of these things. In every instance, we found that people of color were disadvantaged in those systems. Our report sets forth numerous ways that those disadvantages, those inequities can be overcome. And I tell people who are intimidated by the thought that the report is almost 300 pages long, that you can actually read this report. If you read those 69 pages of the report, you will understand precisely what our findings are. You will understand precisely how we set forth a plan to change these things. We set forth recommendations, and we set forth an implementation strategy. So in a nutshell, I think that, that's the way to do it. It's fully accessible to anybody in the community who wants to go online, go to our RAISE website, ROCRAISE, ROCRASE.com. The report is right there. And I've encouraged the mayor and the county executive to make hard copies of this report available around the community in libraries, recreation centers, churches, schools, anywhere that people congregate. They should be able to see a hard copy of this report.
What are, if you can encapsulate, some of the core recommendations based on the findings in the report?
Well, we find that the policing system is out of whack. We've heard a lot of people say, a lot of police officers try to explain their actions by saying that this was the way they were trained. Well, clearly something is wrong with the training system. We have a very expensive and comprehensive 12 county regional training center here in Rochester that trains everyone who wants to be a police officer. That training needs to be reevaluated, upgraded. We make specific recommendations there. In the area of mental health, we find that there are barriers to people who need mental health services. This was exacerbated in the approved case where he was turned away or not completely or comprehensively served at one of the mental health providers in this community. In the area of housing, we find that all of the people of color are compacted in the city of Rochester, very few affordable housings in the suburbs. Found zoning ordinances contributed to this problem. We could go on. And I will leave for Mr. Lightfoot the discussion about what they found in the area of minority businesses, which not only talks about a group, but how those people can actually be job creators. So I think that this is a sort of a different approach that was taken, not just singling in on a problem, trying to find a culprit, and then trying to make people feel bad, but actually saying, here's a problem, it's gone on too long, it can be deconstructed, it can be revised, and here's a new way of doing it.
Willie, as part of the commission, one of the areas that was looked at was business development in our community. What were the findings there? I know you were intimately involved with that.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for having me, and blessings to former Mayor Bill Johnson, co-chair of the Race Commission. Uh, Basically, the first of all, this was a great experience for me. One of the most impactful things that I think I've ever done in my life, and I say that because historically, going back, to my father, the late Honorable Walker Lightfoot, who spent a lot of time on this topic, working within our community, I've never seen the city and county collaboratively to really work towards dealing with race and structural equity in our community. So I just wanted to take a time to acknowledge that work from the mayor and also from the county executive, as well as the commissioners that led this work. The business development was extremely comprehensive approach to how we dealt with getting input from the community. We had a bus tour that we took that we went to several businesses in the city, on the east side, on the west side, as well as in the suburbs, both east and west of the suburbs. We talked to business owners. We petitioned them through petitions. We also worked with having a online community forum, engaging our community on several ways. Of course, with the pandemic, we had to be very creative on how we did that, but felt that we got extensive amount of feedback. And the three areas of priorities that we identified in the business development committee was access to capital was number one. That we just didn't see people of color having the same access to capital as other business entities had that were not people of color. Also, we identified that mentorship and or technical assistance was needed from these businesses. Many of them had had no dealings with the city or county. They didn't know about any of the business resources that were available, and some had been in business for over 30 years. Also, fast tracking the NWBE process. There are many advantages to being an NWBE business. Many of our businesses, especially of color, do not know or can access being an NWBE business because of the process. Either they don't know about it or the process is too cumbersome. So one of the priorities was fast tracking the state NWBE process, which opens up a lot of doors for those particular businesses. So those were just three. There were many others that came out of our business development committee, but those were just the top three priorities that we presented in this Race Commission report.
Of course, identifying these inequities, Willie, is one thing. Coming up with solutions and then having accountability toward those solutions obviously is critical going forward. What's being done in that regard from your standpoint?
Going into this, there were four elected officials on this commission, two from one Republican, one Democrat from the county, and then two from the city council. Going into this, intentionally, I wanted to be a part of this because of that accountability piece. I think it's imperative as we've done this historic work that we must understand, and the community must understand, that it's not just going to sit on someone's desk, that we're going to work to implement a lot of these ideas and these priorities and recommendations. With that being said, after the report came out, I wrote a letter to the mayor, the county executive, and co-chairs asking for four things. Prioritizing the recommendation to put forth, first of all, some type of committee, whether it's an ad hoc committee from the Race 21 commissioners or a new committee, but some type of committee that would do four things. One, prioritize recommendations. Two, create timelines for implementation. Three, monitor and evaluate progress. Four, engage and report to the community. And five, advocate race findings and recommendations across state and federal government. One of the things that going into this is that we found that, of course, the county and city were collaboratively looking at their particular entities. But a lot of the things that we found out in this report is that they do touch state and federal laws and or policies. So it's to look at changing policy, practices, and procedures. So oftentimes, some of the things that we need to change, some of these policies and practices and procedures are beyond the city's control and or the county's control. So that's important that we also look at, and we not let the federal contingency off the hook or our state partners off the hook. They have to take, this has to be a holistic approach with all forms of government have to be involved in order for us to see great successes in a lot of these recommendations. But it's imperative that we have some type of accountability measures, which the report does speak to, accountability measures in place so that we can constantly keep a timeline, put timelines to some of these priorities, and keep the community constantly engaged and updated on our progress.
As you're well aware, Bill, Willie's points are well taken. So often people will put pen to paper and that's where it stays. Accountability and then a long-range view of what the commission can do. From your perspective, what is the path forward?
Well, the path forward is that the community has to really own this. One of the reasons we just didn't hand the report to the mayor and the county executive, we posted this report. We printed it. And now the community has to own it. And it's not a perfect vessel. We said this right up front. We didn't deal with every issue. We didn't have time to deal with issue. But the issues that we identified are important. They are crucial, and they have to be acted upon. So we don't want to sit by, and we're committed not to sit by and just watch this thing fade away. It's already been now a month since this report was released. The commissioners, like we're doing today, going all across the community, talking to people to inform them. But we're waiting for the mayor and the county executive to produce a plan, the same plan consistent with the steps that Councilman Lightfoot has outlined. These are very reasonable approaches to take and say, yes, we're going to have people follow up on this. We're going to give specific examples. Yes, we're going to report back to the community on our progress every 60 or 90 days. And yes, we will leverage, we will say to all of our partners that you have a role in this as well. The civil service system cannot be changed by the city of Rochester, the county of Monroe. It's got to be changed at the state level. Training requirements for police officers cannot be changed at the local level. And that means engaging in a tough conversation with the unions because they have to give up something in this process. So there's a lot of work for everybody to do in order to see this happen. And Willie and I are going to be on the agitation committee. We're going to make sure that nobody forgets, that the people in power don't forget. And it doesn't matter who the mayor or the county executive is. It's not a Lovely Warren or an Adam Bello Pan. It belongs to the community, and whoever fills those shoes will be held as accountable as the people who established this commission. As simple as that.